Good afternoon and welcome back to our Undergraduate Research Week's Speakers Corner, Network Corner. It's my privilege to introduce our next speaker, Dr. Sean Harper. In 2018, Time magazine named Dr. Harper one of the 50 most important people in healthcare. Through his partnership, Westlake Villa Biopartners, he has brought over a dozen new therapies to market for patient care. And starting as a practicing physician, he moved into basic research, where his clinical programs extend from early clinical trials to global outcome studies. And he believes that this is the golden age of biotech. Dr. Harper?
Thank you very much for that kind introduction. And if I could perhaps have my first slide up, I do refer to this time in history as the golden age of human therapeutics, or the golden age of biotechnology. And the reason for that is quite simple, really. The underlying scientific field, biology, is exploding right now in a non-linear, exponential fashion, much like what occurred in the 20th century in fields like mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, aerospace, computing. And when you look at the parallels there, go back 100 years, they're quite striking, because today, if you were to go around to the top 1,000 scientists in any disciplines across the world and ask them, what field is really taking off and is going to define this century scientifically, 98% of them would probably say biology. And this is because, again, fields evolve in this way scientifically, and you enter after a long, flat period of very little progress in the field, sudden exponential growth. And I always like to tell this story where my grandfather was born in 1900. He didn't see his first automobile until he was 13. By the time he was 25, he was designing airplanes for Curtiss Wright. And at 50, he was head of structural engineering at Boeing and McDonnell Douglas, doing commercial aircraft design and the Thor rocket, which was our response to Sputnik. And when I was about 7, I went in his office, where he kept little metal models of rockets and planes that Boeing and Douglas had given him. And I said, how did you get this job? 7-year-old thinks that's pretty cool. Boy thinks that's pretty cool. And he said to me something that I'll never forget. He said, well, I kind of rode the wave of the science and the technology that was happening. And I just was really kind of in the right place at the right time. And from the time that I was in my mid-20s in medical school at UCSF, I sort of saw, perhaps because I was living through the HIV epidemic at that time, a different epidemic, that we really had very limited tools, but that the molecular biology revolution was going to allow a tremendous opportunity over the next, 4 or 5 decades to bring really important therapies to patients. You could put up the next slide, please. We see this every day in the news. This now slide is somewhat dated. And of course, these days we're seeing a lot about vaccine development and antivirals for COVID-19. But so the slide is very dated in that way. But, these amazing advances that are occurring are all around us in terms of, curative therapies for cancers, curative therapies for rare genetic syndromes using technologies like gene therapy. The next slide, please. And, again, what you can see in this slide is that there are examples here of technologies that have taken off in this way and come together to make huge impacts on a field like biotechnology. So I've already talked about this exponential rise that's in the first panel. In the middle panel, what you're seeing is the kind of Moore's law equivalent for DNA sequencing. So, Moore's law is a doubling of computing power for the same price over a certain rate. This is a curve of of DNA sequencing and the cost of sequencing with high fidelity and high throughput DNA, which has improved in a period of time faster than any other human technology, a billion-fold improvement over about a 10-year period. And it's now possible, the first human genome, all in, fully loaded, cost almost $3 billion to perform. You can do a high quality, 20x human genome sequence now in the right kind of environment for about the price of an iPhone. And as that kind of technology advances, it allows us to be able to do things like understand cancer at the genetic level. It's a disease of genetic error. And so, to be able to survey thousands and tens of thousands of different cancers to understand how they're driven by genetic mutation, to be able to examine entire populations looking for evidence of genes that are driver mutations in either protecting or in preventing or predisposing to disease. When I was head of R&D at Amgen, we acquired Decode Genetics in Iceland, where this kind of technology exists, and basically the entire population of Iceland has been sequenced down to the single nucleotide level, and tremendous learnings occur because of this kind of technology. Another great example is X-ray crystallography. In the last panel, when I was, a postdoc at MIT back in the early 90s, big teams of people spent 10 years solving a single protein fragment crystal structure. Now, a big biopharma company might do 700 of them a year. And the ability to sort of generate and store and analyze these kind of data are making the field a little bit more of an engineering type of field rather than just a descriptive field as biology was for many, many years. Next slide, please. And what you can see lately is that we've got really exciting new modalities. When I started my career at Merck 25 years or so ago, there was basically small molecule technology and vaccines, which were protein-based. But that was pretty much it for modalities. And by the time I left Amgen to start Westlake BioPartners, we had 12 modalities available at our disposal to interdict disease targets. And as you know, a technology like antibody therapies have become kind of a commodity. You can get them done by all kinds of CROs and, order them for relatively little money. You can get high quality antibodies made that can evolve into human therapeutics and be manufactured at scale through contract research organizations and manufacturing organizations. But more recently, we've had real explosions in modalities like cell-based therapies and gene therapies that are really working and are making an enormous impact. And I expect we'll continue to see this very exciting evolution of better target definition because of tools like human genetics and DNA sequencing, and better modalities to interdict targets. And so really it is right now the most exciting time in this field because there are great challenges still. We still have the number one killer of people on the planet is still cardiovascular disease, which we have not great solutions for. We have cancer that is still not curable in 95% of cases. And of course, now this pandemic is illustrative of the importance of having technologies that can rapidly diagnose, track, contain, treat with antiviral medications, vaccinate entire world population, I think illustrates how critical it is that we continue to forge ahead in this field. And frankly, my optimism about being able to get to a vaccine for this particular infection at this point is exponentially greater than it would have been 5 or 10 years ago, because of, again, this overall just explosive field of development. So with that, I'd like to stop prepared comments and take down the slides, and I'd be happy to take comments or try to respond to questions. Okay. So there's a question from Robin via email. What kind of collaborations do you think we might see for the first time as a result of our current global pandemic? Well, I hope we see a much more collaborative environment than the one we're in right now. And I think we will. The scientific community around the world, based largely on another technology that enables this field, which is the internet, really has grown tremendously. And there is a very intensive collaboration that takes place that no longer really has many borders associated with it from a pure scientific perspective. So I expect that there will be enormous collaboration, and in particular, when we get to a point where we have a vaccine that needs to be tested in large numbers of patients, and you need to do it in a place where there's enough infection rate to be able to conduct it, but not so much of infection that things are chaotic and you can't conduct it, that's likely going to have to be a very collaborative process where trial sites are chosen wherever it's best in the world and conducted. And I don't think we've ever had that level of collaboration in clinical trial area. Another question from Janelle via email. What advice would you give a young researcher just starting out? Well, what I would say is that if you're moving into this field, the field of biotechnology, the field of applying biology to problems, and it doesn't have to be human therapeutics necessarily, obviously crop sciences to feed a larger population around the world, there are biofuels, there's all kinds of ways that biology, there's some of the most impressive data storage technologies right now are using DNA as a storage method. So what I would say is be excited about the enormous opportunity that ride that wave that my grandfather told me about 50 years ago. It's an amazing thing. Science and technology can drive you through a really exciting career. And, there's all kinds of challenges of, getting grants and finding, opportunity to find exactly what you want to do. But I think for me, just being fascinated by the field and willing to work hard, I was able to move through different phases of my career in academics and then a tremendously exciting career in industry. One of the pieces of advice I give is don't ignore the opportunities that exist in large and small, biotech environments. After getting, of course, your complete, advanced scientific training first. And there's just tremendous opportunity in this field. There's still an enormous amount of unmet need. And I hope that, today's young researchers will have as exciting an experience as I did, or have and still having. Question from Matt via email. Would you categorize the U.S. as a historic leader in this field? And you see our infrastructure holding up for future leadership and problem solving? Yes, I think there's no question that in biomedical sciences, the U.S. has been the heavyweight player. There's no question of that today. Other countries have very impressive records in biomedical sciences, like the UK, But they don't operate at the scale, and they haven't had the kind of consistent policy investment that the U.S. has in NIH funding, for example, that's gone on for decade after decade after decade, allowing for the training of the MD PhD type people and funding research at a basic level. But we can't be complacent when we think about this from a competitive perspective, if we're considering that, because we can certainly be overtaken by others. And I would say that this pandemic illustrates that complacency is not a good idea. The way that the United States has handled this pandemic to date is pretty poor in comparison to a number of other countries around the world. So I think it's a warning sign for us not to become complacent. Hillary, through YouTube, has asked, what area of biotech do you find most interesting and why? Well, at the moment, I'm pretty focused on how to defeat this particular virus, and also how to address the enormous threat that exists from similar viruses that live in animal populations like bats. And I think that it's interesting. It's a field that fascinated me, and I didn't end up going into it, but this kind of infectious disease field and working internationally in epidemic settings and things like that was actually very interesting to me. In the end, I was drawn more toward human therapeutics development and ended up, focusing in that. But I think right now, what I love about the field of biotechnology is that you really don't have to restrict yourself to one thing. What I love about what we do today, for example, is we set up small companies to address unmet needs in virtually any therapeutic area, any disease where there's real, clear, unmet need, where you need new therapeutic. And then we'll work in almost any modality, from small molecules, antibodies, cell-based therapies, gene therapies. And it's all interesting. Cancer's an incredibly interesting problem, cardiovascular disease, neuroscience. There are many serious illnesses that are still at high prevalence through the world, that are deserving of attempts to interdict them. Okay, great. It looks like we're run out of time already here, so if there are any questions, I can answer them.
Sean, I was just going to ask you one more quick question, which I
Sure.
think you've addressed. As the CEO, what gets you up in the morning and what keeps you awake at night?
Well, I'm a venture capitalist who recruits and puts in place and mentors the CEOs. And I can tell you that the CEOs right now are all unbelievably focused on trying to push forward the mission of their companies. Let's say that they're trying to develop a new cell-based therapy for cancer. And what they're seeing right now is patients who are lined up to go into their clinical trials dying from their disease before they could get access to these novel therapies. And that's a very compelling thing to see, as you might imagine. And all of these CEOs are doing everything they possibly can to keep their companies moving forward, despite the enormous challenges that are put in place by this epidemic. And, of course, if their technology has in any way, shape, or form can impact the epidemic, they're turning their attention to that. And I think right now there's a pretty singular focus on those issues.
Well, I guess we are almost out of time. Wonderful questions. And Sean, thank you so much for your leadership, for your part in the council, Undergraduate Research Council. And we look forward to many more wonderful discoveries coming down the line. Thank you so much for your time.
Well, thank you for the invitation. It was my pleasure.